everybody, Charlie Stevens here. Thank you so much for joining me for another guitar lesson. Today we're going to learn about the A chord. So we've already learned about the A minor chord, and I showed you that one first just because I think that shape is a little bit easier. But the A major chord is super cool and an important one to play as well. So I wanted to show you that next. So, just like the A minor chord, we start on our open A string. And it's almost the exact same as A minor. So the difference between a minor and a major triad, as we'll learn when we learn about triads in our theory course, is the difference between the third, actually. So if we're in our A minor scale, we learn that one, right? So we have 1, 2, 3. We know we have the note C natural, right? And in our A minor chord, we have the note C natural as well. So, A, B, C. C is the third note. Okay, there are two types of C's though. There's a C, but there's also a note called C sharp. So that one is a little further away. That's actually what we call a major third when we go to that one. So, what we need to do to make an A major chord instead of an A minor chord is actually just take the C note, which we learned here when we played our C major scale, and we just have to take that up a half step to C sharp. Okay, so A minor, but with C sharp instead. Okay, so if I were to shove my finger up there like that, as you can see, that's kind of silly and uncomfortable, right? So we don't really do it like that. We would change our fingerings around, okay? But that is the shape. We're going to have these three notes right next to each other now that we've moved this one to the second fret also. Okay, so we have open A, second fret of D, second fret of G, second fret of B, open E. That's how you play an A major chord. So this one is a little tricky because we have three right next to each other. So a lot of people play this like this at first with three different fingers. So you're going to use your index finger on the D string, second fret, middle finger, G string, second fret, and ring finger on the second fret of the B string. Okay, so I have to stand them up really tall. They're kind of crowded, but that works. Okay, also notice how far away this one is from the fret. Okay, so I usually want them all right up against the frets, but because they're all on there, this finger is actually kind of closer to my first fret than my second fret, so I have to squeeze it down pretty hard to make sure it still sounds good and not like that or something, right? So, little cumbersome to use all three fingers, okay? So some people use their three littler fingers maybe. That could be a good way to do it, maybe. You could also use three fingers but arrange them differently like this. I've seen people do it like this, where you have your second finger on the second fret of the D string, and then you put your third finger on the second fret of the B string, and then you take your first finger and you sneak it in like this. So it's still on the second fret. It looks like it's almost here, but it's still on the second fret. So I don't know if I really like that way. I like to save this shape for an A major 7 chord, where I actually play the fret below, and that's kind of when I would use this fingering. I probably wouldn't use that fingering and have them all on the same fret. The way I like to do it is with two fingers usually. So my first finger does most of the work. It's kind of like a little mini bar. Okay, so a bar is when we squeeze down more than one string at a time. So I'm getting the D string and the G string at the second fret with my first finger, kind of the flatter bottom part of my finger. Usually we want to be right on the tip, but with a bar it's okay to kind of use the flat bottom part a little bit more. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And then my second finger, now that one is coming in and playing just on the tip of it on the second fret of B. Okay, now that one can't be sideways because then you can't hear that E string. It'll be muting that one, right? So that one really comes in to save the day by standing up tall and get out of the way of the E string. And this one kind of lazily, I don't want to say lazily actually, because it does require some effort, especially when you're new to this, but this one just kind of smushes down a bunch of strings. It's a little less accurate, right? A little less precise. And this one kind of saves the day by making sure that we stay out of the E string's way. So that's my favorite way to play an A chord. That's usually how I do it. We could also do it with one finger, just barring all three of those strings now. You could do that with, it's hard to do it with that finger. This finger I get practice in because I move this shape. Sometimes you have to do it with one finger if you're adding other stuff to the shape, okay? Because this is a movable shape that we'll learn how to do other things with. So keep this idea kind of fluid in your mind as how you can play this, because you probably will end up experimenting with a few different ways. But I really recommend this way, where you do your first finger on the fourth and the third string, and that's doing a little mini bar, getting both strings with the same finger, and then the second finger plays second fret of the second string. I think that's a really great way to play it, but feel free to do all three fingers, these fingers, try it with all the smush. The problem with all bar is that you'll probably want to mute that string. Or what some people do is they'll just fret it, which is actually called an A major 6 if you add the note F sharp to it, and that's not really... I mean, it's a great sound, sure, but it's not, if you're playing a song and it calls for an A chord, it might sound weird to play an A major 6. You don't really want to do that. You're better off muting the E string, actually. Not even getting that one. Or getting it, but you don't really want to do that, or you have a totally different chord. Okay, now I was going back and forth. Regular A, squeezing down to that 6. So you can do all sorts of stuff like that, so there's really no right or wrong ways to do any of this stuff. You just want to familiarize yourself. But at first, it can be kind of overwhelming to learn all this stuff on guitar, right? So I do recommend you have one go-to way to play A. Pick a way that you like, that makes sense for your fingers, and you play it like that. I would recommend doing it this way, though, because I'd also like to show you A7 now. So A7 is the same thing as A, but without the middle note, basically. We're going to play an open string. Instead of this A on the G string, we can lower that to an open G note. So now both of these have to stand up. Now we're not doing a bar with this finger anymore. It's just standing up tall, getting out of the way for the open G. And now my second finger is still in the same spot. Second fret of the B string. That chord really likes to go to D major, which is kind of cool because you have these two fingers here, you move them over. Yeah, this is on the fourth string, this one's on the second string. Then you hop them over, this one's on the third, now this one's on the first string. And then I add this finger, I have D. So that's a good little practice thing. Okay, so if you're practicing A like this with the bar and you're having trouble, you can unbar it, basically, and just play that D string regular, and you get a D, an A7 chord. A7, then I'll smush it down, and I'll go back to regular A. Sometimes you can play an A7 instead of an A, like if we're in the key of D. Probably totally fine. If your chords are D, G, and A, you should be able to play an A7 instead of that A pretty much every time it comes around, depending on the song. That's not always true, though, so you really do need to learn your regular A as well for when you need an A major and not an A7. Okay, but basically the same shape. We have this one where there's 3 in a row, or you take the middle note out, and you got A7. That's the way I've always thought of this, okay? The open G string right in the center of that shape gives us an A7. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for watching that lesson on how to play an A and an A7 chord. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep picking, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Thanks.